normal. We're all normal. We're all weird. We're all beautiful. I really want
Normal's overrated.
everyone to realize that they do that to some degree. You buy an outfit that makes you look better. You buy a bra. You buy glasses. I mean, some things I'm touching on are like really needed, but see the point in that people are taking
Yeah.
care of themselves cosmetically. It's the same difference as what these people are doing. And especially in Judy's case, Judy, again, doing this just to not be bullied because these are the things she likes. I mean, you guys, I wish it was just as easy to be like, I like these things and that's that, but it's so heartbreaking to go out and have your tires slashed because you like Cinderella, because that's your favorite Disney princess. How heartbreaking is that? It's not okay. It stops.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah, 100%. You're exactly right. I'm ultimately, presentation is part of the spectrum. There's so many people who are getting to a point where when it comes to the labels, they don't want to be a part of it anymore. And that's actually called non-binary, where people, they get to the point where they're like, look, I don't want to be a boy or a girl. But that's another direction. we can get there in a minute. So that I don't get too far off thought. Well, these are all things that I researched, right? So, that's where I was going with it. My research took me to a place of learning that there's a spectrum, okay? Where people, their gender, it's on a spectrum, and that's why I went there with science. So if you look at scientifically, I believe it's like 1 in 200 people are actually born what's called intersex, where their DNA is not the typical XX or XY. And it might be XXY or XYY, or there's so many variations. And there are children born, physically different. Intersex can be, they could be born with male parts and have female DNA. Or they could be born with a combination of they'll have a uterus and male genitalia, So there's so many different variations when you go into that 1 in 200.
And born, sorry, I have to touch on it. So when you're born with the male parts and then the girl things, does that mean that they're producing like breasts and they're producing like normal like hormones like girls would?
It's actually different for every single one, and that's what's really beautiful. They're like the unicorn of human beings, where they're different but they're not, biologically they are an anomaly. And throughout time it's been easiest to say, okay, this one has male parts, this one has girl parts, they must be that, right? But now we can look at on a genetic level that's actually outside of that 2-part thing,
Right.
So while it is easy, almost elementary, to say this equals this and this equals this, there's a lot more depth to the human brain and genetic code.
Right.
That there are people who are outside of that spectrum who are equally entitled to happiness and
right,
self-fulfillment and all of that,
Right. And like I said, that's the bottom line, is that no matter what they categorize as, it like you treat people with respect. Well, you're people. You treat it with respect. You would never ever be okay with somebody just walking up and kicking a dog. Like, how do we think that that's okay to do to people who, again, they like a Disney princess. They like these things. Or stop on my tangents. Okay. Anyways, let's get back to Judy. So Judy is now older and thriving.
Yes.
And like she knows.
Oh yeah. Her story.
Yeah. You're good. It's your story. It's the whole story. You're good.
Well, thank you. I do get excited about little tangents sometimes.
It's good.
Well, okay, so back to her story. So bullying started in preschool. By first, or I think it was second grade, she was about 7. So I want to say like first or second grade. So she's always had longer, curlier hair. It was never like long, but it got down to here a couple times. and she loved it. She has the most beautiful, like, curly golden hair. And I was so proud of her hair that I'm like, oh, we're not cutting that, you know. But the bullying got really bad. And at one point, I basically convinced her to cut it. And I was like, you know, we should cut it, you know, that way, you know, maybe it'll help with the bullying so they don't bother you as much, you know. And I convinced her to cut her hair. And she's a super handsome baby, you know, like with her haircut, she was looking super good, but she didn't feel in her skin, you know, like she cried and she was so sad that I had cut her hair, and it just really ripped me apart. And I promised her at that point that I would never make her cut her hair again, ever. It was so devastating for me being the one that convinced her to change herself so that she could fit in. That was a really big moment for me as a parent. By 8 years old, so around that same time, she started to say when she was 6 that she felt like she should run away because she felt like she was a problem. So she became really emotionally tumultuous. She became very much like a toddler, just very fragile emotionally.